So let me spend some time talking about this topic of ITTOs, because I think it would benefit everyone on the call. So you guys on the call, do me a favor, those of you struggling with ITTOs, I know Mr. Hassan has typed in, but if you can do me a favor and just type in as much information or questions you have, more on the question line, specifics, get more specific. Tell me what you're struggling with as far as these ITTOs are concerned. Can you do that and tell me which ITTOs or which aspect of the ITTOs? I guess I'm trying my best to make sure I don't presume that you're talking about what you're not. ITTOs are big. Hassan, we could be talking about ITTOs, cramming ITTOs. That I definitely do not recommend that you do. Yeah, you can hear? Okay, very good. So, this could take us a long time, It could take us a long time to talk about. So let me think. ITTOs. Which part of ITTOs is bothering you the most? Can you tell me that? Are you trying to memorize? Because if you're trying to memorize the ITTOs, you don't want to do that, You get what I'm saying, Mr. Hassan? You don't want to do that. You don't want to cram ITTOs. That's not a good use of your project management time for studying for the exam. So behind me I have the infamous page 25, right? A lot of people, they memorize this page, and that's okay. Memorize the processes, but that's where your memorization needs to kind of be winding down. I don't expect that you take every one of these 49 processes and begin cramming. Oh, I need to know all of the ITTOs here and here. No, you don't. That wouldn't be a good use of your time, Let me show you what I would do, Mr. Hassan, to kind of help give you some clarity in this. If I was studying for the exam again, my approach would be to take a process like, let's go to cost. Okay, plan cost management, for example. Let's talk about plan cost management for a few seconds, and let me see if I can give you some clarity. Okay, so if we take plan cost management as a process, the question is, how far should I go in my ITTO quest? Let me try and highlight it. It's been a little bit elusive here. Plan cost management. Let's focus on that one. All right, there we go. Plan cost management. So if I was going to approach the ITTOs for plan cost management, Mr. Hassan, I would recommend not doing it in isolation of similar processes. Plan schedule, plan costs, lots of those plans, they have a lot in common. So you need to find the commonalities in those processes. So let's open our favorite book and let's talk about it. I do apologize if my video is very slow. It will eventually get caught up, hopefully. Yep, hopefully. Anyway, so yeah, let's take a look at plan cost management. I want to break this down for you. You take a look at plan cost on page 232. This is going to be repeated in a bunch of processes, Hassan. You see, project charter, project management plan, EEFs, OPAs. Almost every process in the planning process group that you look at It's going to have those 4. So you need to kill all of those baddies with one stone. You see, charter, plan, EEFs, OPAs. There's really not too much there. So when it comes to the planning processes, not a big deal. Take a look at page 396. Risk management, plan risk management. Same thing. Project charter, project management plan, EEFs, OPAs, and then they threw in project documents. Let's take a look at plan communications management. Project charter, project management plan, project documents, EEFs, OPAs. That's not a big deal. So for a ton of these processes within planning, you have very similar inputs. Okay? Now, we're talking about plan cost management, so let me show you a slide from this plan cost management area or process. So if we go to this summary, plan cost management, if I was getting ready for the exam, this is what I would do. Project charter, project management plan, EEFs, OPAs. Is there anything that I do not understand? You see, Mr. Hassan, this is the question you need to ask yourself so that your mind becomes calmer as you're studying. So you need to ask yourself, is there any one of these inputs that I don't know? And the answer, of course, for you, I'm going to guess the answer is no, I know that stuff. Then you're not worried about anything here, right? You shouldn't be worried about anything here. Next step, you go to the tools and techniques. So you have to break them into bite-sized chunks. Is there anything I don't know in the inputs? No, I know all the inputs. I'm comfortable with it. Good. Tools and techniques. Are there any tools and techniques you're having nightmares of? Are they haunting your sleep? No. Expert judgment, applying expertise, subject matter expertise of some sort, specialist knowledge, specialist information. I'm applying that. Not a big deal. What about data analysis? As a project manager, you know that a lot of your actions are based on an analysis. Okay? Now, where I would be scared, if I was a student, I would be scared of not knowing the granularity in data analysis, for example. So if I saw data analysis, I'd be like, okay. But which particular analysis are they talking about? As I take a look at data analysis, I know right off the bat, we're going to be doing an analysis of the currency. What metric for cost are we going to use? How will the earned value management be implemented across the entire thing? I've got an idea of what they could be talking about using data analysis, but do you know what is even better than guessing? Let me show you what's best. You want to go to the mothership. You want to go to page 686. Renee knows what I'm talking about because he has attended the PMP Exam Power Review course. And in that course, we went through every tool and technique. Not in the individual processes, I mean raw. And this is what I'm advising you to do. All right, go to page 686. And take a look. You got data gathering there, but on page 687 you've got data analysis. You know what you need to do? You need to look for all the places that 7.1 appears, and 7.1 appears under alternatives analysis. So if I was a student getting ready for the exam, I would say, oh, okay, alternatives analysis is used in a bunch of places. What is it? Now, if you're taking a look at that particular knowledge area, you want to go to where the number is bold. Okay, let me see if I can share this sheet. There's a particular sheet that one of my team members put together, and I would have shared that with you just to underscore. But hey, if you've got, let me not waste time. If you got your PMBOK guide, look at page 687, alternatives analysis, and you want to look for where the number is bold, 9.2. I would then go to 9.2 in the PMBOK guide. This is what I would do if I was studying. I hit data analysis, wasn't sure, not sure which kind of analysis you're talking about in plan cost management. I would have to take a trip. I would go to 9.2, and in 9.2, under data analysis, I can see we've got alternatives analysis. That is the best place to check for a particular tool and technique where that number is boldened. All right, so if I go to my data analysis section for this process, 9.2 and page 325. So what I would do is hone in on what exactly they're talking about, and I would read data analysis, and it says a data analysis technique used in this process includes but is not limited to alternatives analysis. Alternatives analysis is used to evaluate identified options in order to select the options or approaches to use to execute and perform the work of the project. Oh, I see. So they're looking for alternatives to carry out the cost related work, looking at metrics, possibilities, so on and so forth. So with that background knowledge in mind, I would then go to 7.1 where my journey started, and I would go to page 238, and it says alternatives analysis can include reviewing strategic funding options such as self-funding, funding with equity, or funding with debt. It could also include consideration of ways to acquire project resources such as making, purchasing, renting, or leasing. So at this point, I've taken a trip around the spectrum. I've got my ideas of what it could be, but now I have married 9.2 with 7.1 under data analysis to hone in on the specific alternatives analysis that they're talking about, you see. And now I have a finer focus of what they mean. Okay, funding options and different ways to acquire project resources. Now it's even clearer than ever before, you know. So what I was thinking about, the units of measure, levels of precision, so on and so forth, those things, you can see them on page 238, but that is not exactly what is being spoken about in data analysis. So now I can correct my vision. I mean, these things have to be discussed by using some sort of, you know, expert judgment. As you can see, it's on page 237. The things I was talking about fell more under expert judgment, and now I can see very clearly what falls under data analysis. So Mr. Hassan, there is no shortcut for doing that for the exam. My suggestion would be, for everything you are not clear about, you have to go back to the mothership, go back to page 686, 687, find out where that tool and technique was first discussed, find out where the specific sub-technique was discussed. I wish I could find that Excel sheet for you. Let me see. A team member of mine did this. Now, I'm not saying I'm going to give it to you, but, you know, this is PMI's IP, but seeing it may help you better understand what I'm going on about here. One of my team members put this together, but I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to find it. I was so sure I did have it. Oh, I think have I found it? This might be it. Is it? Yep, this is it. So let me show you this, Hassan. Just give it a second. It's going to open up, and I'll show you. I'll be even more specific about what I'm talking about. Okay, so right here, if we can zoom in really close, there we go. And let me go here. Oh, this is not the exact sheet. Okay, this is not the exact sheet. It is similar to the sheet, but I'm looking for the specific sheet. And this seems to be 5th edition type stuff. Okay, so I'm not finding the sheet exactly, the sheet I'm looking for, but the sheet I'm looking for, it looks pretty much like what they did in the PMBOK guide. You know, if you could create those sheets for yourself and you go through them one by one, let's see, is this it? Bear with me, I really want to clarify this for you. Nope. Is it it? Nope, it's not it again. Okay, if I end up finding the sheet, I will show you, but I think what you need to do is take the PMBOK guide, page 686 all the way on down for all those tables. Okay, make your own version of these sheets. Do you think you could do that? If you make your own version of the sheets and you have a note taking place for all of those sub ITTOs, I think it will really help you. And you know, it's unfortunate I cannot find what I'm looking for. It would have probably been clearer, but I think you get the picture. Does that help? Does that help a little bit? Maybe just a tiny bit, Hassan, to give you clarity on what to do. I'm hoping it helps you a little bit. You see, let me show you one more idea. Okay, one more idea. So take a concept, okay? Take a concept in the tools and techniques, and then study it. You know, for example, I took the concept of MCDA, which is under, do you know what MCDA is under? That's another thing you should be able to do. So for the ITTOs, another concern of mine would be having something like MCDA in my head, but not knowing which tool and technique it rolls up to. You got to know what this stuff rolls up to. So MCDA rolls up to decision making. So whatever else is under decision making, I would be uncomfortable roaming around and not knowing what are all of those sub tools and techniques under decision making. And then in this example, I pretty much took the concept and tried to make it more meaningful so that if I was teaching it to someone, I could show them how MCDA is used, you know, and based on their findings, they can make a decision. Here's another MCDA example. So you want to take an example and make it real for yourself. Take a concept in a PMBOK guide and go study it. So if there's any of the ITTOs that's not clear for you, you need to find tools, templates, examples. Make it real, make it meaningful. Don't cram. What you do not want to do is cram. You see, there's a difference between going to the PMBOK guide to look for a definition, to get clarity, and making it real, versus cramming. And also looking for tools like the tool that you can see behind me, taking an idea and making it real for yourself. Let me see if there's something else I can show you before we call it a day with this. Let's see. Give me a moment. Let me see if I can find another tool for this illustration. Have you tried listing out all of the tools and techniques in the PMBOK guide in one Excel sheet? I dare say it's quite a worthwhile task. You might want to do that, you know. You could actually create your own page 686, 687 in an Excel sheet, or you could just list them all out. Maybe it's, you know, all in one place. But every tool, technique, input, and output that's in a PMBOK guide, list them all out and use it as a check sheet. Do I know this? Do I not know this? The ones you don't know, you want to research further, you know. The ones you do know, you want to leave alone. For example, let me show you an example of what I'm talking about. Okay. You've probably read about the Stakeholder Cube, but in the actual PMBOK guide, it is not upplayed very much. So you hear a concept, Stakeholder Cube. Have you seen one? Have you seen the three-dimensional shape that's talked about? If the answer is no, then of course you want to go to the web, and then you can do a further study. And there's so many examples of the Stakeholder Cube. Some of them are kind of interesting. Some of them are very basic, like this one, straightforward. But then what you didn't know is that the third dimension is really attitude. So you do your little studying and it becomes more real. What I'm talking about is making the ITTOs real to you. That is what I would suggest. Instead of just reading in the PMBOK guide alone, you want to make this stuff as real as can be to you. You know, and that's what I would recommend. So, you know, to round up plan cost management, the last thing would be the cost management plan. Do you feel comfortable with it? If the answer is yes, move on. If the answer is no and you've never read it before, open up the book, read it, highlight, take notes, create mind maps, do everything under the sun to make sure you understand every single one of those tools, techniques, inputs, and outputs. But let me ask you, Mr. Hassan, is there any particular, I don't know, ITTO that is a problem that we can talk about? Any particular one that you find to be a big problem for you? Anyone? Oh, I've been missing all the fun in the chats. Okay, Renee has been chatting in some stuff. Okay, so let me catch up on the chats. I'm sorry, I missed a lot of the chats. So, okay. So what input? Oh, I see. The inputs and stuff like that, Hassan, there are some inputs you shouldn't worry about. If I were you, I would attack lots of them in bulk like I showed you. Attack them in bulk. So all the places, the project charter is an input. Open up the figure under 4.1 for project charter and take a look at all the places the project charter is an input to. Take a look at all the places, you know, that these things are inputs to, and I think that will help. You've read cover to cover. That's good. Good. I'm glad you're getting good ideas. Renee sharing some of his mnemonics in a few seconds. I think I'll see them coming up. Here they are. Nice. Oh, that's interesting. David. Wow. That's a very creative one. Develop project chart. Develop. Wow. I like that. David Dance Daily. Making merry. Playing chords. That's crazy. That's a good one. I like what you got. You got some rather interesting ones. Princess Diana should excuse. That's. Oh, I think even Harry and William would find that one interesting. Uh-oh. Princess Elizabeth detained Charles. While she was a princess, she detained her son. Well, no, she's a queen now. But anyway, that's hilarious. That is very funny. That is pretty cool. I appreciate you sharing that. Yeah, those are some pretty cool mnemonics. Very, very good. I love it. Oh dear. Peace engaged at Disney. You got some pretty interesting mnemonics, and I'm glad that those are working for you. If you can shoot them to my email, I'll be really interested in using some of them. I like the one about Princess Elizabeth. Even though she's a queen, there might be a future princess. Hope she doesn't detain Charles for being naughty or something. And yeah, the other one that you had about David, that is a pretty cool mnemonic. But Mr. Hassan, I hope that gives you some clarity, and I hope that begins to ease your mind, because the ITTOs, they are important, but they're not important in the way people try to, you know, make them important. Some people just want to memorize all the ITTOs. No, you don't have to do that. Don't kill yourself. You know, ITTOs are not meant to be crammed and memorized. They're meant to be understood. And when you see questions on the exam, it's going to be your project manager. What is the best thing to do? Oh, it's best to apply this tool and technique, or it's best to apply that tool and technique. All right? So, folks, before we head on back to our running programs, is there any additional question or comment? I appreciate you asking, Mr. Hassan, about the ITTOs. I know a lot of people have those ITTO woes. So thank you. All right. So with that, I will assume that there are no further questions. And we'll change our gears here, because we've been doing a lot of heavy lifting all day, talking about very dense subject matter. So dense, it's something else. So dense, we don't want it to make us dense by continuing in it. So why don't we change gears and talk about some motivational stuff? Okay, so to round up for the day before we cut everyone loose, let's talk about some motivational stuff. You know, maybe hear from some of our PMP bosses and dons who have done it. It's been a while we heard from Charmaine. Charmaine is one of our students. Just stay put. He's going to play for about 40-50 minutes. You get some very useful tips from Charmaine. She's one of our bosses. She got certified very recently, and she dropped some gold. Okay, so I hope the gold that she drops will help you and inspire you. Okay, for now, I'll say my goodbye just in case you don't hear from me after Charmaine. And I'll say have a wonderful rest of your day, your morning, wherever you are in the world. All right? So let's hear from Charmaine. Let's hear what she has. Charmaine, where art thou? In the world, thank you very much for joining this very special meeting. It's a touch point and a point of encouragement when one of our own kills the exam. And Charmaine has done just that. She took the exam, put it into a chokehold, and it's now PMP. It's no easy feat. So without much ado, I will ask Charmaine to take it away and tell us about her journey towards PMP certification. Charmaine, welcome.
Thank you, Phil. Let's move on to the next slide. Hi, everybody. So the reason I decided to take the PMP was because I wanted to further my career. And as Phil said, I recently took the PMP test, and I passed with 2 areas above target. And before I got onto this online self-study course, I had been working on the 5th edition and also following Phil on YouTube. I was not one of Phil's students, but I used to stalk him on YouTube because I found his videos very helpful. And I had been using a different site for my practice exams, and I would always get 90 and above. And while watching one of Phil's videos, he mentioned that his mock would be a good litmus test for you to determine whether you're ready for the test. So I decided to subscribe just for the mock exam, and I took the mock and I got a 52%, which was not a good score. But because my exam was in a few days, and I had gotten a lot of reassurance from the other side, I decided to go ahead and take the PMP test, and I failed miserably. So this was during the transition time when the PMI were transitioning from the 5th edition to the 6th edition. So I decided to take some time off and, nurse my wounds and my ego that had been deflated by failing. And after a while, I decided to sign up for the online course with Phil. So I really liked the online course, and one of the reasons that I really enjoyed it is because I'm an auditory learner, and I was able to pause the recording and sometimes forward or rewind and just get to the point that I wanted while also taking notes. So I was able to take very detailed notes by just listening and being able to go back to an area that I missed. And while studying and also looking at the PMBOK guide, I found that the notes that I took by following the online lessons were very comprehensive, and they covered most of the important things that I highlighted in the PMBOK guide. And immediately after completing an area, I would take the 2020 quizzes, and the 2020 vision quizzes were a good indicator of what you have retained, what you have learned, and whether there were any other areas that you needed to go back and polish up on. And let's move on to the next slide, please. So how I studied for the exam, I can't say that I had a specific timetable because, I have kids, I have a life, I have a job and all that stuff. But I could say when I studied, I did anywhere between 2 to 3 hours. And when I had the time, I would get to 4 hours. And I would study an area a day. I would not just try and cram everything into the time that I had. Like if I was studying integration, I would focus on integration that day. And I would test myself to determine whether I have understood the content that I have been studying before I was able to move on to the next topic. And I just followed the same order as they are in the PMBOK guide. I didn't decide to jump around and do it in any haphazard manner, but I just followed the order they are in the PMBOK guide, and I also followed the order of Phil's lessons. And as far as studying the formulas, one thing that I had to do was memorize the formulas, but and also know so that you can know what component will be going to the numerator or the denominator. But that's not enough. You also need to know how to define these components, because you could be asked what these items mean, and also if there were any components that might have more than one term used to describe the component. Just make sure you know all the terms, because they could use them interchangeably. And if you only memorized or learned one term, then you might get stuck if presented with a question in the exam that has used a term that you do not understand. And the week before the exam, I re-listened to the videos. I would listen to the videos while going about my business, because the videos are accessible via a mobile device. So you could listen to them on your iPad, your phone, whatever device you're using. And you could listen to these videos while cooking, while driving, commuting to wherever you're going. And there were even times that I would listen to the videos while working out. And this was a good strategy for me because I'm an auditory learner, and just listening to the content was a good reinforcement for me, because I had read the areas of the PMBOK guide that I needed to read. I had listened to these videos previously, and just listening to them again, hearing Phil's voice again, was a good way to reinforce. And I can say I listened to the videos so much until at some point I said I never want to hear this guy's voice ever again.
What?
Because Charmaine? I just kept listening. Whenever I had free time, whether I was
Charmaine?
Cleaning, whether I was cooking, I would just listen in the background.
Don't want to listen to my voice again? That's so unfair to say. What did I do to anyone? All I'm trying to do is help people. Just trying to help people pass the exam. I get these calls all day long, people telling me they want videos, they want audios. I put them out, and now a student says she doesn't even want to listen to my voice again. Can you imagine that? I take all sorts of abuse on YouTube. It's crazy. People saying Phil is over the top. I don't want to listen to him again. Haven't I tried? Haven't I tried to help people? This is what I do all day long, churning out these ridiculous videos for students that don't even appreciate me. I'm done. Let's call this call off. Hey, stop the recording, Jim. I'm fed up. Seriously? Did you really think that was real? I got you, didn't I? Well, you know I care so much about my students, and for anyone who thinks I am overbearing, I don't blame them. I am a little bit of a handful every now and again, or probably every day, aren't I? Well, if you want more training and coaching for the PMP exam, you know what to do. Go to Praizion.com. Sign up for the course Charmaine has described so far. She's talked about a 35 contact hour course that is online self-study. I would highly advise it to those of you who are struggling like she did at first. She even talked about how she took the mock exam, but she decided to go with other solutions that said, oh, you're in the 80s. Now that you don't want to do, folks. You want to listen to the mock exam results. If it says you're not ready, you're not ready. We've seen lots of students follow our advice and hold back and succeed eventually. But we've also seen lots of students rush ahead without holding back to prepare properly. So what she's saying is absolutely correct. All right. So let's listen to the rest of this. We'll close out in about 5 minutes. I don't have much longer, but go to Praizion.com. All right. I'll see you at the end.
Whenever I had free time, whether I was cleaning, whether I was cooking, I would just listen in the background. And that was a good way for me to retain the material. And also during that last week, that's when I decided to take the mini mock and the marathon mock, and I think there was also a 2020 mock. I took all those on the last week, and on the night before the exam, I did not do too much. I just went out with my family. I had dinner out, and I was very tempted to have a glass of wine, but at the same time, I was very paranoid because I thought I would have a glass of wine and I would forget everything. It would wipe my memory, and I would go to the test and not know what I studied. So I just had a nice dinner with family, and I rested and waited for the next morning. Woke up bright and early, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, and I went to the exam room. Let's move on. So on the day of the exam, I don't know if any of you have taken the test, but there is tutorial that you have to go through that shows you how to navigate the exam. And as far as pacing, I don't know exactly how many questions I took in an hour, but prior to the exam, I did my data dump. And what I did was I dumped page 25. I dumped all the formulas, and then I also decided to do the power interest grid. I did not expect myself to get the 2 above target, but I got to where I was, and if I had only spent more time looking at the mocks and redoing them and going over the areas that I found I needed to work on more, I think I might have been able to get out with 5 above target. But I don't have any regrets. I passed and I'm certified, and that's a good thing. And as far as tips for studying, I would encourage you to take your time, pace yourself, and don't just cram everything into one day or one study day. So go over an area a day, or you can even take 2 days depending on how much time you have. Go over the quizzes. There are the quizzes in the learning system. Go over the quizzes. Make sure you pass. If you're not passing, go over the areas of weakness, and you can retake the quiz, and just to get yourself in a good place, because after all the blood, sweat, and tears that you put in, you want to be able to come out. You want to come out with a pass. You don't want to just go in there ill prepared and end up failing like I did. I had some very false reassurance, and it ended up to be very false. So just pace yourself. Take a day or two, study an area, just keep it moving. And also when you're watching the videos or listening to the videos, take some notes, because sometimes reading some information in your own words is actually one of the ways that helps it stick. And that's one of the ways that helped me. So I listened to the videos and took my notes, read the PMBOK guide, and so, just know the formulas. If you're talking about planned value. Know what planned value means. What's the definition of planned value? Is there another word to describe planned value? Because although we focus on just knowing the formula and knowing the calculation, you could be asked to define these terms. What does the planned value mean? And you'll be given various answers. And if you don't know what the planned value actually means, you're going to end up picking the wrong answer. So just know the formulas. And then doing the brain dump of page 25, one thing that really, really, really helped me, and thank you, Phil, the mnemonic that Phil created, the challenge for me is that I had to relearn the 6th edition mnemonic. And I kept confusing it with the 5th edition because I had memorized the 5th edition one. So I had to relearn the 6th edition. So what I did was before my study session, I would do a dump of page 25 and the formulas. And at the end of my study session, I would do the dump again. So once I was down with the mnemonics and I got it nice and straight, I would just put down letters, and I would also complete the processes, because just knowing where the letter falls does not necessarily mean that you know what process goes where. So I just wanted to be sure that I know what the processes are that are denoted by these mnemonics. And that was helpful for me during the exam, because I knew if I saw a process, I knew what process group it belonged to. So in addition to learning the mnemonic, creating your own, whatever Phil gives you, just know what falls where and what process falls under which process group. And then as far as the ITTOs, the inputs, tools and techniques, and outputs, I created a spreadsheet, and the spreadsheet, it's a very long spreadsheet, and what I did was sort the various categories. So I was able to sort the various inputs or tools and techniques and the outputs, and I was able to see which tools had commonality so that I would know these going to what process.